What has happened in Post Shifters? Welcome back to another episode of the Post Shift Podcast. Of course, I'm your host, Shawn Soole. I've had to cancel some podcast live streams and I had to jump in some other ones. It's been a little bit of a hectic couple of weeks for me. I can't still divulge why it's been a hectic couple of weeks, but it's just been busy with tying off some consultancy and the big project I've been alluding to the last little while. Just clicking some buttons as I always do because I'm a one-man show. Today, I'm really looking forward to this conversation with Christin Marvin. She is the author of Multi-Unit Mastery, which we're going to get into, like multi-unit leadership, which I'm excited for. Hospitality Leaders Roadmap, which is an audiobook, which I am definitely downloading this afternoon and making sure that I listen to that on my walks. You know me and my love of audiobooks. I'm not a reader. I just can't concentrate. I can concentrate when I'm on my walk. And she's the host of the Restaurant Leadership Podcast. So she's a leadership strategist advisor. She works with owners and operators on how to do leadership, because I think as an owner operator, it is extremely tough to expand on your leadership outside of one venue. When you got one venue, you can still have your finger in the pie. But what happens when you have 2 or 3 pies? And I'm envious of people who have really clicked this in. And one person that comes to mind is Jack McGarry from Dead Rabbit. Like, Jack McGarry has got multiple venues in multiple cities. He's got multiple different concepts now. One in New Jersey that he recently opened. He's got Irish Exit in the train station. And just listening to him and hanging out with him when I was with Sean Fincher in Annapolis a couple of months ago, well, this time last year now, was really eye-opening. So it's really cool. And the cool thing is that, and I've said this before, usually you see people on my podcast and we've got a relationship in the past, but as the podcast gets bigger and more popular, I get a lot of recommendations from people to have on the show. And Kristen's one of those people that I actually haven't got much of a relationship outside of right here, right now. So if you love my raw conversations about everything, when you have a brand new guest on the show, it's always great. So that's my intro. Welcome, Christin. Thank you so much for joining me.
So excited to have wonderful conversation with you. I don't know how we don't know each other yet, but because it sounds like we speak the same language. So I'm excited that we're starting this journey and building this relationship today.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm really curious about like the books you've written and sort of the direction of that leadership, because as we're talking in the green room, I do think we have a very strong alignment on how we feel leadership should be in the hospitality industry. And as always, I always mention my father, who was ex-military. My military upbringing definitely influenced my leadership style, and it still does to a degree, but I've definitely mellowed and got a little softer in my touch when it comes to this next generation. So I love origin stories. I'm a big comic book fan. What's your origin story getting into the hospitality industry and then specializing in that leadership realm?
Yeah, I think like a lot of people that are probably listening to the show, I started cooking when I was 15 and my family's favorite Mexican restaurant. That was my first job. I'd go to school, I'd go play sports, and then I'd go cook for a little bit. And when I graduated high school, I moved to Colorado, and my mom called me and said, because she had just moved there, I found the coolest restaurant. And this was 1999, to give you a little bit of a date there. But she said, I found the coolest restaurant. The people are amazing. The food's incredible. You should absolutely come get a job here. And it was Outback Steakhouse. And I know, which everybody laughs today. So I learned how to serve and bartend there. And I'll tell you what, from moving from a really small town in the Midwest and being a really shy kid, moving into the industry, it opened up a completely different side of me. I became, social, and I loved the team dynamic and the competition that existed every single day. And the systems were incredible. I was 19 years old going, this training's amazing. They're testing me every day. I've got to know my shit. I learned how to sell things. It was just, that the staff was really close to each other. And of course there was this party atmosphere. So it was just an eye-opening world for me. I did that for a little bit. And then I wandered up the street one day to a 5-star 5-diamond hotel that was having a job fair. And I met the most charming Irishman who was a bar manager for us on our international student program. And from Dublin. And he was like, we're opening this cocktail bar. You should absolutely come be a part of this team. And I was like, oh, opening something for the first time? That sounds amazing. So I got a job there. I ended up working in the hotel while I was putting myself through college. And graduated from college and I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I was looking at jobs and I was like, I love what I'm doing. I'm making great money. I don't care that I'm working nights and weekends and holidays. This is great. I'm having a blast every day. So I went to the food and beverage manager and said, how do I do this for the rest of my life? And he said, well, take our management training course. So I got that binder out of the course and I said, okay, I'm ready to be a GM at 24. And so they said,
Are we all ready to be GMs at 24? Are we just all ready to be GMs at 24?
Yeah. I'm a little ambitious and sometimes naive. So it's a good combination sometimes, but fearless, And so they said, why don't you go be an AGM first? Which is a very good idea, right? So they sent me down to the steakhouse to work with a great GM. I was down there for 3 months, and then a GM job opened at the bar that I had originally been a server at, and I applied for it. They gave it to me, and I crashed and burned. It was great. I was partying with the staff, favoritism on the schedule. I mean, all the shit that you don't want to do. I did it. I had no financial acumen. I had no idea what anyone was talking about in leadership meetings. It was just, I was on a wild ride. So anyway, they were getting ready to open a fine dining concept in a new building, and they had hired a GM that had worked for Danny Meyer, and I was obsessed with Danny. Setting the table was my leadership resource, and they said, "Do you want to go join this team as an assistant manager?" And I, of course, jumped at it. They'd hired some master mixologists out of New York to build this beautiful cocktail program that nobody in the town had ever seen. This is in a smaller town in Colorado, and I was studying to become a sommelier. So it was just it was constant learning and development kind of flowing in. And I got to watch setting the table come to life when we opened that restaurant. And a lot of the team and I are still pretty tight today. And it was just magical. So again, here I am, mid-20s going, this is it. I found it. I want to do this for the rest of my life. I was traveling the world through food and wine and spirits. And it was really eye-opening for me. So I was there for about 5 years. Ended up moving to Denver and saw a job on Craigslist for a restaurant that was in the heart of downtown. It was going to open in 2 weeks. Went and interviewed with the leadership team, and we opened this beautiful Italian restaurant. It was super high volume. I was able to infuse a lot of that fine dining finesse into the style of service that we curated. And it was like one of the best. I've opened 13 restaurants, but the best opening ever. So joined that team, worked my way up as a managing partner with that group. We opened 5 different concepts in 5 years, which was a blast. So fun. Speakeasy to smokehouse, you name it. And then I decided to walk away from that partnership when we invested in a restaurant that failed. So that was my first kind of taste of failure at partial owner at 30. And then I jumped on with a with a restaurant group that had 6 locations, all the same concept in Denver, wildly successful, owned by 2 brothers. And 2 weeks after I got hired, they said, hey, private equity came in and we're going to take this thing nationally to a national level. And I went, oh, shit. What did I just get myself into? I didn't want to go down that road. I stuck it out. I knew that the brand had a lot of legs and was really successful. We grew from 6 to 48 locations in 7 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Jesus.
So you talk about scaling. I've never seen so much tech coming at us at one time, and a lot changed, but we also maintained a lot, which was great. Needless to say, I started to burn out in that position as a regional, overseeing part of Colorado. And so I jumped on, that was craving being back in the local space and being able to have a little bit more empowerment and autonomy in my voice again, and being able to design systems and solve problems. And so I jumped on with an ice cream company in Denver that had 6 locations, locally owned, that wanted to grow to 20. And then the pandemic hit, and I had stopped investing in myself and stopped taking care of myself and started drinking pretty heavily to cover up my unhappiness. And when I stopped and realized I needed to start working with a coach and get back to my purpose, find my purpose again in the business, that's when I realized the one-on-one work I'd always done with people and opportunities and development and growth was my favorite part of the industry. And that's when I decided to launch my coaching company.
That's awesome. That's a whirlwind. I know it's probably over 15 years, but that's a hell of a whirlwind experience to be able to pull off. I always say it's interesting jumping between independents and corporates. Like I talk to a lot of independent owners and they're like, well, we don't love like hard systems, black and white systems, because that feels too corporate.
Yeah.
And I'm like, yeah, there's a reason why these corporate, like when I came to Canada, because in Australia, we don't really have franchise restaurants per se. Like it's not something that, like 20 years ago when I left Australia, wasn't something we had the way that we have like a Cactus Club, a Moxie's, a Milestones, a Keg, an Earl's like we do here in North America. And so I started working at Moxie's and I just got open to these systems. And I'm like, this is incredible. Like I've never had everything black and white laid out exactly how it should be done, from the host to the buster to everything. And I always find the independents are always like pushing against that. They're just 100%. Like, well, no, they'll know how to do it.
Yeah.
So at the single unit level, what separates a strong operator from someone just surviving as a leader shift to shift?
It's really as simple as, can you take a day or two off a week and fully disconnect and not get the text messages all the time? And is your team empowered enough to make great decisions so that you can actually walk away and have some sort of balance in your life with one restaurant? It's as simple as that.
And do you think though that's one of the leadership habits you need to sort of have? Because as I said in the green room, it's one of my hardest things to get through is like detaching myself. And the funny thing is when I'm consulting for a client, I can detach myself, no problems at all. When I'm in the business, it's like, oh no, I need to do everything. But with a client, I'm like, oh no, I can tell your managers to do this and your bartenders to do that, and they'll do their thing, and I don't have to worry about it.
Yeah.
Do you think that's one of the early like leadership habits you need to get on board? Is there any others that you kind of feel like you need to, like non-negotiables as a leader in a single unit, to make sure that you have long-term sustainable leadership?
Yeah, I mean, I think and to go back to what you just said, Shawn, I want to dive in. I would like to dive into that with you later. Let's you and I schedule some time, because I would like to coach you on that moment that you're having, because I want to understand what the difference is with your mindset in terms of how you're thinking about your clients and how you're thinking about your business. Because if we can unlock that, when you are a single unit operator, it's really important to sit down and design what your vision is for the business and what your vision is for the role, because you've got to have a target to move to and some sort of North Star to measure yourself, measure your actions and your behaviors against. So when you are a single operator and you start to feel pulled in, well, gosh, we just had a really bad Sunday shift. Maybe I should start being there on Sundays now. Instead of taking time to coach and dig and figure out what the root cause of that problem was, and use that as a moment to teach and coach the team and get better and empower them to make better decisions next time. Instead of doing that and just jumping back in, when you have a vision, you can take a second and stop and go, wait a minute, is me jumping into the business on Sundays again helping me get closer to the goal and the vision I just set for myself, or is it pulling me farther away? So that's a really, really crucial thing that I think a lot of owners start their businesses without. And because they just think about the business, all the aspects of the business, but they need to think about themselves and what life they want, what kind of lifestyle, what kind of life they want to live. And from there, once you have clarity around that, then you can start to develop the really powerful skill of boundaries. Right? No,
what
I'm
are
not
boundaries?
kidding.
Boundaries don't exist.
Your face says it all. Your face says it all, right? They're so difficult to talk about. I think a lot of people think that they're out of reach, or they just feel overwhelmed with, how do I even start to set a boundary, or how can I set a boundary and still support my team so they don't
I think a
feel
lot of
like
times you feel dirty about having boundary. You're like, I'm there for my team all the time, 24/7, so on and so forth. A good friend of mine always says, don't buy yourself a job. If you're going to like get into the restaurant business as an owner, don't buy yourself a job. And I coach a lot of owners as their exit strategies, and I'm like, you haven't paid yourself a salary for 5 years. Your business is not healthy. Like as a leader, it's not a business. Your business is not healthy. If you leave, your business fails. And so it's not worth anything to sell.
Yeah. You know, it's funny too, because I was doing a leadership workshop last week with a group. They've got 4 locations. They're getting ready to expand rapidly. And the owner was at the leadership workshop, and we were getting really vulnerable, and we were talking about the type we were designing their leadership style. And I asked the owner what was getting in their way of being more successful and happier. And he said, I can't walk away from the business on a regular basis because I feel guilty. And I feel like I need to be there all the time because I need to be fully present and in front of my team to feel like I'm making an impact. And I stopped him and I looked at the entire room and I said, who in here would like to see this owner take more time off? And they all raised their hand. So our teams see when we're there all the time, but they don't necessarily want that for us, right? If we are going to grow, and everybody starts with a single unit, right? If you have aspirations to grow your restaurant or to have any sort of life outside of your restaurant and not be chained to it, like you said, you've got to figure out how to start trusting your people to take care of the business when you're not there. They may not do it exactly the way that you want or at the level. I hear a lot of owners say, gosh, they just don't, they're not in it like I'm in it. And they don't think like owners. They never will. But they want to see you happy and living a great life, right? It's our job as leaders to make leadership look fun and look right. And I know that's easy to say. It's really, really hard to do.
Oh no, I agree. But I think I'm sure you do it in your leadership one-on-ones. Is that I think vulnerability and transparency with ownership and leadership in particular should be much more prevalent in the industry. Yeah. I still think that a lot of people are our age, so it's like that sort of like old school OG hospitality mentality is like you don't show your feelings. When you hit the floor, your face is smiling and all that sort of stuff, even if your lawyer just ripped you a new one because you didn't sign something or anything like that. So I think I always sort of push for that vulnerability and transparency with leadership. Do you find that that's always a hard hurdle to get a lot of that older generation, that Gen X, millennials, sort of being much more vulnerable and transparent with their team because they feel like they need to be the pillar of strength for their whole team?
You know what? It's really interesting because I came up in that too, especially starting out at a five-star, 5-diamond resort. You left it at the door. No matter what was going on. You came in, you were in your uniform, you were crisp, you showed up, you were always happy, you made eye contact within 10 feet, you spoke to guests within 5 feet. I mean, it was just, you never said no, you were always saying yes. And so I very much came up in that, and it was difficult for me in my leadership to be vulnerable. And I'll tell you what, I didn't actually tap into it until I got out of the industry and started coaching, because then I understood how powerful it was during sessions. And I said, well, if I'm going to challenge my clients to do this, I've got to lead by example too, in the way that I'm living my life and showing up in the world. And that switch has brought so many more people closer to me. It has really strengthened relationships. And I'll tell you, when I do, we do one-on-one coaching, we do group coaching with restaurant owners, which is really powerful. And in these leadership workshops as well, when you create that space for people, and I call it designing the alliance, set the stage for this is a safe space. This is what we want. Let's hold confidentiality in here today. Let's show up and really start talking about what's going wrong in the business and what you're struggling with, so that we can actually open doors to move forward and have progress start to happen. I have been shocked over the last 3 years of how open people are. I mean, it is not rare that we are crying in workshops because somebody has celebrated something that they didn't take time to celebrate. And they're so proud of themselves, or that somebody's burnt out and they haven't said the words before, and they feel comfortable enough to say that in front of their team. And to watch people rally around them when that happens is powerful. So there's a really powerful shift happening in the business, because it is harder to run restaurants, as we know, than it ever has been before. But more and more people are open to raising their hand going, I need help, and I don't know where to get it from.
Do you think that's come out of the pandemic a lot? I feel like the pandemic did a lot of good and bad things for our industry. Obviously, during the pandemic it was horrible, but I do feel for the older generations, it's definitely opened up. Like, you need to be more open with your team. And I think the younger generation, I'm envious of the new kids coming into the industry because they know what they want. Like, I want to work 4 days a week. Like, I have a 15-year-old daughter, so I get very much that sort of new mentality, not towards us as parents, but like her friends. She's like, I don't want drama. I'm just not going to talk to you for a couple of weeks. I'm just going to cut you out of that for a bit. We're not going to talk on Snapchat. And I feel this next generation are the ones that are like, I only want to work 4 days a week. I'll work 9-hour shifts, but I want 3 days off a week. I want the money that I want because these kids have options. And I feel like that's staff coming up and us coming down has really created this sort of like nice environment in the middle that still needs to be cracked a little bit, but I feel like it's getting better.
Yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with you, but we know post-pandemic, 6 million people left the industry. And a lot of those had the institutional knowledge. And so the people that are coming in now have less experience, and it's putting so much pressure on leadership and training and every single system that you have or you don't have in your business. But yes, this next generation is coming in and they are pros when it comes to setting boundaries, right? And
Where'd
they learn that shit from anyway?
Yeah, I wish I could do it.
You can. It's all up here. But there's a couple different camps of operators. You know, there are a lot of people that I talk to that have been doing this for 30, 40 years. And they're like, why is this so hard at this stage of my business? Which I get. But they will say, you know, people just don't want to work these days. And then there's the other ones. I know it makes my blood boil. And then the other ones that are embracing and saying, oh my gosh, of course, like, you know exactly what you want. And this gives me the information I need to be able to know how to staff my business properly. People have forgotten that a lot of people, especially in the front of the house, got into the restaurant industry because the money was great and the hours are really flexible. You could take as much vacation time off as you want. You could say yes to as many acting gigs as you wanted to, right? Mm-hmm. And I think the ones that are so frustrated and they can't see that people want different quality of life now, and they're not willing to change. Absolutely.
As they should. We should be leaving the industry better than what we got into it.
100%.
Like, I shouldn't be asking a 19-year-old chef to work an 18-hour day. Like, we did that 20 years ago, and it should be better now. Absolutely. And it is tougher for a lot of operators, and I completely understand. Like, I work with one of my clients he's been in the industry for 50 years. He opened his first restaurant at 23. He's 73 this year, and he's still working 40 hours a week. He loves it, and it's going to be horrible when he retires because he's not going to know what to do with himself. Yeah. But he really has empowered his whole team to like really run the place as if they are owners, and it runs miraculously with no systems, which is shocking to me because there's nothing on paper. It's just like hearsay and what you do. And I do agree with you. Post-pandemic, that sort of like late 20s to mid 30s section of the industry sort of left. And there was the older generation like us, and then the super young. So we're doing like 40 plus and then 20 something. Yeah. And there's a big gap in the middle, and that's the ones that aren't being able to train staff down. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. So when you're in the leadership things, how do you pull on the thread? Because obviously you're going to have some leaders and ownership that's going to be very open with what they want and need and their mental health, and there's some that are going to be a little bit more stopped. How do you pull on that thread and like pull them out of their shell to like really allow them to open up on a leadership level? Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, we very much operate from an addition mindset when we're talking to someone. You know, we want to understand if they care about their people, they want to develop their people, and if they're ready to start talking about their problems and what they're really struggling with. If they're not willing to do that work first, they're not ready for us. And that's okay. They might be in a year or 2 years or 5 years down the road, but they have to be able to get comfortable being uncomfortable. Because when we coach and we take them through our framework, we are asking really tough questions, and we are challenging their verbiage that they're using with their teams, and we are challenging their mindset. And that takes a long time to unravel. So it's really about creating space for people on a consistent basis where we can dive deeper. That's what coaching is. Helping people get a deeper level of knowledge and understanding around their leadership style
and how they're running their business. So once we set that stage and create that space for them to just go deeper and deeper and deeper, they start to understand what's actually happening, because we move 1,000,000 miles an hour in this business. And there's even, yes, we may sit down operations meetings, but to actually have an owner sit and deeply strategize about, let me look back at the last 90 days of my business and see what, and celebrate what went really, really well, and talk about what the challenges are, then we can unlock what we need to do next in order for the business to grow.
So now we're taking that jump over to being a multi-unit. What's the change in identity when you go from being a single unit operator to a multi-unit operator?
I'm not a parent, but I'm sure it's got to be similar to when you have that second kid. It's this internal struggle for a lot of operators of, I've built this wonderful thing and I love my team so much at location 1, but I feel a little guilty that I'm going to spend time at location 2. How do I separate my time, support both teams, and feel like every time I'm in the restaurant, I'm making an impact? Because when you're in one location, you can run food.
Technical difficulties. Sorry about that, team. I had a little bit of a technical difficulty. I had to reset my modem really quickly, and I'm glad that we're back. Apologize about that in advance. So I'm just going to go back to here. Here we go. So as I was saying, what's the change in your identity as a leader? Because as we talked about this in the green room, I'm working on a big project, and I'm basically going to a multi-unit operator straight away from not even having a single unit operator operation. What's that change in identity when you move from a single unit operator to a multi-unit operator?
Yeah, it really comes down to the question a lot of operators ask themselves and struggle with which is, what's my role now? You know what? I'm so used to working with my hands. I'm so used to being there in the trenches with the team. I love it. I get that rush. I know that, when they need help, I'm there immediately. And now there's more admin. There's more computer time, right? So it's a huge shift from being physically on the job to having to be the conductor behind the scenes, measuring success in a completely different way, and not being able to be as much of a part of that energy that you get from the shift every single night. And that
where do you gain that dopamine hit?
100%. And so it's very lonely. And it can be really, really confusing again, which is why it's so important to really clearly define your role before you open number 2 and figure out your time, because you can't just completely remove yourself. Then you're like, what's my purpose? This isn't fun anymore. You can't just fully remove yourself from that, because it's at the heart and soul of what we do.
Well, yeah, because we're hospitality people, so we're passionate. We want to be there for people, whether it be our staff or our guests. And then all of a sudden you step away. And then as you get bigger, you start divvying up the admin stuff to a bookkeeper or someone who's doing your admin stuff. And all of a sudden you really look at yourself and go, what am I doing?
Well, there's also a lot of FOMO, right? Like, and as a restaurant owner sitting there that's reading a guest review about how extraordinary the experience is, it's like, oh, I missed it. Right? You don't get that same, like I said, that same dopamine when it's behind the screen.
Yeah, I haven't bartended for about 4 years now, and people are like, "Oh, do you miss?" I'm like, "I don't miss bartending. I miss bartending. I miss that the 2 or 3 hours after everything's set up, before anything needs to be pulled down. That beautiful moment when I'm just making cocktails and touching tables, kissing babies.
Yeah.
I do not miss prep. I don't miss setup. I don't miss cleaning. I don't miss any of those things whatsoever. I miss those sweet 3 hours of just like when you're in the weeds and it's beautiful."
Yeah. 100%.
So when you start, like, as you said, you opened to 48 venues in 7 years or something, or something crazy like that.
Yeah.
When you really get into that sort of high level, you've gone from being a single unit operator to being a multi-unit CEO. How do you do that? And how do you sort of bridge that necessity of purpose for people as they grow, especially when they get that big? Because a lot of times, like you said, we want to be in the thick of things. We want to be in the mud with our staff, like pushing through the trenches. How do you get it when you get up to like C-suite level?
Yeah. So when you talk about purpose and expansion in business, you have to make sure that you are hiring people and building a team of people that have shared purpose. And you do that through identifying core values for your business.
Mm,
3 to 5 is all you need. And then you make sure that you are using those core values in your hiring process, in your one-on-ones, in your performance reviews, so that they're always top of mind for the organization. But when you're interviewing people, you have something to measure that against. So you have the core values, but then you're also defining what the behaviors are behind those core values and how they
mm,
show up. Because I was having a conversation with a client last week. They're getting ready to look for a new general manager, and I said, let's really be thoughtful about this, and let's look back at what's not been working with the former GMs, and let's talk about what we want moving forward here for the next 3 to 5 years. And I said, do you have core values? And she said, yes. But the owner and I, the two owners of the business, she said, but the owner and I look at the word integrity, and it has two different meanings to us.
mm.
So, and so I was like, okay, well, we got to get clear on that first
Yeah.
before we can move forward, right? So you
Yeah.
got to have alignment on what type of people are going to fit the type of company that you want to run, because restaurants are, every single one of them are so unique, which is, it's
Hmm.
so exciting and amazing. And part of the reason it's so hard, right? And then once you identify what you're looking for, especially in multi-unit, there's a really important shift that happens when you go from 1 to 2, of understanding what leadership team the business actually needs, and
Mm,
making sure that your financial model can support that, whether it's fractional coaching, fractional HR, fractional CFO, or that. So identifying that core leadership team versus what a lot of people do when they have one restaurant, or they move into 2, which is just promoting based off loyalty.
mm. I was watching a video where you were mentioning that, and it was eye opening, because that's, I think, a bit of a con when it comes to our hospitality industry, because oh, you've been here 2 years, the bar manager just left, you're the new bar manager. And we rarely go, hey, would you like to be the new bar manager?
Yeah.
It's usually just, oh no, the bar manager left, you're the new bar manager, you've been here 2 years, you can do it anyway.
Yeah.
And we sort of promote just because people have been hanging around, not necessarily
100%.
they want to, or whether or not they have the skill base to do it.
100%. Well, and you mentioned this on one of your episodes I was listening to, the importance of job descriptions, right? So bar manager is a
Mm,
great example. Your bar manager leaves. Take a second with your team and go, wait a minute, do we have a job description for this? If we don't, let's create one with AI using our
mm.
website
Oh,
and
it's
our
so easy.
core values. So easy.
Yeah.
Let's review it together, because, AI, garbage in, garbage out. Let's review it together, make sure it fits our language and our organization. And then get yourself a plan together and go, okay, we have one candidate internally that might fit 60 or 70% of these
Hmm.
qualifications. What do we need to get them there if they want it? And then do we have the infrastructure in place in order to do that? Or do we need to go look externally? I think that could be a 30-minute conversation that could
Yeah.
really solve that turnover issue.
Yeah. And I think I've been talking a lot about this, about like, there's always training journeys, from like, if you're a hostess busser up to being like a bartender, server, that sort of thing, or in the kitchen. But once you get into management, there's very rarely learning journeys after you get into management. It's like, oh, you're a manager now, and your training and your nurturing sort of just stops. You
Yeah.
just exist now, and then
Yeah.
that progresses into ownership, where you just sort of exist.
100%. It's a lot of the reason why I burnt out in the industry. I had been
Mm,
very passionate about, like I talked about earlier, finding ways that I could learn and grow myself, whether it was the book Setting the Table, whether somebody said, hey, we're offering a sommelier certification. I was like, yeah, please sign me up for that. Delicious and exciting. And then, hey, there's a, master mixologist coming in. And by the way, there's this cool Bar Smarts program. I was like, of course I want
done.
to learn all of those things, right? So, and you can compete and all of these fun things. So in my, mid 20s, it was all there. And then as I started to work for a larger organization, I made the mistake of stopping to look for those resources and putting that onus on them, that I thought,
Mm,
well, you guys know where we're going. You all have so much more experience in this area than I do. It's your job to develop me. And when I started doing that, I realized that the leader that I had directly above me wasn't necessarily interested in doing that. And that person was human. I put them on a pedestal. And then I set really high expectations for them, and I was very disappointed. So there's so many resources out there. I mean, your show is a great example of that. There's art, there's social media posts, there's newsletters, there's podcasts. I mean, you can get content in your ear and in front of your face whenever you want it now. And so I love where we're at. And it's no coincidence that all of these resources are available now, because the industry is screaming for it. But when I started my business, I said to myself, I don't want anybody else to burn out like I did. And I want to make sure that people understand where they can find these resources.
100%. For you on a personal level, and I suppose professional as well, where do you see modern hospitality leadership going in the next 5 years? What are the three things that you sort of see and go, okay, well, this is a non-negotiable going forward that every organization should be doing?
You were seeing a lot of people coming into the industry just based off of how they grew up, right? It's very tech forward. They're so much smarter than we were when we came into the business.
So much.
And they're a lot healthier than we were. We were a generation of drinkers, my friend, and party animals. So they're a lot healthier. So I think that what we are seeing is, again, people coming in with more boundaries, people coming in healthier, more clear-headed. They want to go into work and have intention and want to make an impact, and they care about mental health. And I think they're going to demand these things from employers, or they're going to start asking a lot of questions about where these resources are. And owners are going to have to start saying, okay, I should start looking at this. What resources are out there, or empowering them and saying, would you go do some research and let's bring this into the organization? Yeah. I think it's going to be a lot healthier than what we've seen in the past.
Which, again, I am jealous and envious of the fact that they have these beautiful boundaries and like know exactly what they want, because, again, we were a generation of partiers and something. But again, I think that's changed as well. Like, you go into your favorite bar post shift and you're like, had a really bad night. Here's a shot of Fernet. And you're just like, probably not what I need right now, but I'm going to take it because I don't want to be rude. But yeah, I think the changes and the shifts in the industry have been healthy, and I've been harping on it quite a lot. And I remember when I first started talking about my mental health, and I got messages from some of the people in my sort of age bracket, and they're like, you shouldn't be talking about this. You shouldn't be openly talking about this. And I'm like, I've lost friends now. And I'm sure if you're in the industry long enough, you've lost friends. And I'm like, I would prefer to have an awkward conversation at 2 a.m. than get a shitty phone call at 6 a.m. that you're gone. So I'm always up for the awkward conversations.
Yeah, I love it. Good for you. I love you leaning into that. It's amazing.
So with your books and everything like that, what's your plan for the rest of 2026? What are you sort of gearing up to sort of like implement?
Yeah. Well, I've had my former company for 3 years, and I realized I was the bottleneck. And I could not step away from my business. And so had that, beautiful, powerful moment of insight, and realized I needed help. I needed a partner that I've
taking your own advice.
Taking my own advice. Yeah. Like, if we're going to ask clients to do this, we better be leading by example. Right. So, we formed Columbine Hospitality in January of this year, and brought on a tremendous partner that I have opened a ton of restaurants worked with over 10, for over 10 years. He takes everything I do and 10X is the quality of it, which is incredible, because I move 1,000,000 miles an hour. I'm the hyper. He's very much the integrator. And so we are a killer team. And we are hiring a team of coaches to take the framework that exists in multi-unit mastery and roll it out to our clients internationally. So for us, we are scaling. We've hired our first client, or our first coach already, excuse me. And we will be looking to hire our second coach within the next month or two. So
wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's incredible.
So for everybody who's listening, before we get into the deep podcast questions, which I do in every episode, Hospitality Leaders Roadmap and the Multi-Unit Mastery, I'm going to put those links in the bio when you listen to this, up in my link in bio, so you can go straight to Amazon and pick them up. I'm going to be downloading the audiobook for sure, because when I do things like listen to yourself and people like you and read more books, people go like, oh, don't you already know everything? I'm like, if I learn 2% more from something that I'm doing, that's 2% better than I was yesterday.
Yeah.
And for me, it's like, as I said, Sean Fint is a very good friend of mine, went to Annapolis, did his course, his mastermind, and like, although it gave me a few new things, it more reassured me that I was on the right track and I was doing the right things.
Yeah.
It was more of a reassurance than like, oh, this is a eye-opening brand new thing. It was more of a reassurance that I'm not completely shit in the bed.
100%. I can listen to the same podcast episode 5 times and get a different moment of insight each time I listen to it, based on where I'm at and what space I'm creating. And I do want to mention too, I'll send you the link if we didn't talk about this yet, but anybody that's listening to this, we'll give them a free copy of Multi-Unit Mastery. So I'll send you the link for that.
Oh, awesome. That's fantastic because I know a couple of people. I just had drinks with someone, a friend of mine, and he's looking at going multi-unit, like 10, 12 units over the next 2 years.
Awesome.
And I'm just like, okay, I'm with you on that one. So, but at the end of every episode, I always do 5 deep podcast questions for every guest. They're a lot of fun. Okay. They'll either catch you off guard or they'll make you really think. What is one lesson or experience that has shaped your perspective the most, and how do you carry that forward in your life? Personal or professional?
The importance of having a morning routine and making sure that you are filling your cup up and taking care of yourself first and foremost, so that you can give the energy and the attention and the detail and the presence that you want to everybody else in your life.
If you could leave one lasting message or piece of wisdom for the world, what would it be and why?
Stop judging each other and just be open-minded to everyone's perspective. If we could all be better listeners, we think about where the world would be right now. It'd be pretty incredible.
Looking back on your journey, what is something you wish you had understood earlier in your life?
That leadership development is a 50-50 two-way street between me taking ownership and the company delivering those resources as well.
How do you define success, and has your definition of it changed over time?
Yeah. Yes, I redesigned my lifestyle before I started my business so that I, again, could have that North Star of checking myself when I got stressed or I was in the weeds. I could look at that piece of paper and go, am I moving in the right direction here, or did I just take a step back? That has been one of the most powerful lessons I've taught myself at 41 at the time. So could not recommend that enough.
What do you hope your legacy will be, and what steps are you taking to build it?
I hope that people at my grave will say, she was always positive. She always made time for us. And she cared so much about the industry and made a huge impact. And that my resources will live on, the books, the podcast, the content will live on beyond.
That's awesome. Well, as I said at the very start, like I've been getting used to having people who I've never met on the show, and it's still learning. But I've actually become really good friends with a lot of people that I never met before, and then start chatting. And today was no different. Like your insights, and I think it's sometimes tough because you obviously have your podcast and books and stuff. Sometimes you feel like everybody should know this already, and then you meet people and you don't know this. And you should know this. And maybe I need to lay this out a little bit better, because like there's times when I do my episodes and I'm like, does anyone really give a rat's ass? And then I have someone message me. I'm like, oh, wait a second. Yeah, there's people out there that are like still trying to figure out all this stuff themselves. And I think it is always one of the things, right? Especially right now, it's a little bit doom and gloom for the hospitality industry. So everybody's like, I'm just focusing on my single unit. And I'm like, but can you expand? Can you replicate? Can you do this again? Yeah. And so I really appreciate your insights today. It was a fantastic episode.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it. Great to meet you.
Great to meet you. Thank you so much. And I'll let you know when this episode comes out.
Sounds great.
Thanks, Christin. Bye. And all right, post shifters, that's it for now. Keep your standards high, your spirits neat, and your team tighter than your pork costs. Catch you next week on the Post Shift Podcast.